Right across from this liquor store on Compton Avenue is something you would not expect to find in this area, a cultural landmark built by a renowned LA architect. His name was Rudolph Schindler, an immigrant from Austria who came to America in 1920. He admired and worked for Frank Lloyd Wright in the 30s and 40s, but he made his own mark on Los Angeles, designing homes in a unique style he called space architecture. The Bethlehem Baptist Church was built in 1944, but over time it fell into disrepair. Even being declared an historic landmark didn't help. Vandalism, graffiti, and years of neglect made the building uninhabitable. Until a local pastor looking to expand his ministry stumbled on this hidden gem and, together with his congregation, resurrected the only house of worship Rudolph Schindler ever built.
Architects come from all over the world to see Schindler's work in L.A.
Judith Shine is an architecture scholar and leading expert on Schindler's work.
So if this building is at all accessible, it will draw architects from all over, which is pretty amazing.
And just as amazing is what this church looked like only a year earlier. So describe for me, when you first got in here, what exactly did you see?
It was a mess. It was like...
Pastor Melvin Ashley was looking for a bigger space for his faith-built international church when he noticed this dilapidated structure. He says it was like a patient on life support.
There was water puddles where the roof had been leaking. There was no lighting in here. The only light came through was partial light from the windows. The roof was dilapidated where the wood had rotten and from the rain. The pews were just demolished.
And so did people say, how are you going to make a church out of this, Pastor?
Actually, yes, I was quite surprised. I did not know.
Nevertheless, he leased the church, unaware of its cultural significance. Had you ever heard of Schindler before?
No.
So what did that mean to you?
At the time, it didn't mean anything to me.
The pastor and his congregation quickly got to work restoring Schindler's church.
This is the only church he did. He thought that architecture should be designed with space, climate, light, and mood as the materials of architecture.
When I came here, it's like, oh my God. We have balcony space, pulpit space, we have this tremendous space. So it's just like, I'm awesome. I got space up there.
And you utilize it too, because I saw you walking up and down.
I run from this side, then I run from this side. And then I run from this side.
And that's thanks to Schindler. He was all about giving you space.
Yes.
Schindler did something unusual. He did not place the structure in the middle of the lot.
Schindler pushed the church to the edge of the site, turning its back on the busy street on Compton. And he made an L-shaped plan, which he also typically did in his houses because it's the easiest way to define an outdoor courtyard. So for him, instead of just putting a cross on the church, making a kind of three-dimensional sculpture out of the cross and making it into a tower in itself, and then making it part of the interior space by having a skylight at the base, so when you're inside you can look up at the tower and see it, is a very kind of Schindler-esque way of dealing with it.
There are other unique features as well: a diagonal entrance, columns set at 45-degree angles, and grooves cut into the beams for texture and sound absorption.
Schindler worked as his own contractor and managed to make modern architecture cheaper than almost anybody else could. And it's certainly possible, since the congregation had very little money. Schindler said, I can build it for a very low budget.
Schindler was not a believer, but he wanted his work to inspire those who are. And this is sort of like the angels singing on high, the choir up here.
Yes, I think Schindler had a design to get people to look up, to elevate their spirits, elevate their head, to elevate their consciousness.
And the parishioners can feel it.
You can worship God anywhere. But the thing is that once you move to something more beautiful, where the vision is more clear, I think it makes the worship more divine, more pure.
Acoustics is beautiful, the sound, it sounds really nice, and it's just a feeling of peace.
Now, the length of time the Israelites.
This church was built at a time in Los Angeles when racism ran deep and African Americans were confined to certain neighborhoods.
Schindler was certainly progressive, was very open-minded about who he worked with. He was an immigrant himself.
And all they have to do and all you have to do is just turn that negative into a positive. Schindler was a very extraordinary man who did not think like ordinary people. And someone like me, who was not even born yet, but yet linked with him, can still see his vision, and yet it was passed on to me, and it's flourishing.
It's kind of a miracle that it's come back alive as a church again, with a congregation that really loves and appreciates it and wants to bring it back. Really, it's just miraculous and wonderful.
It has life, it has music, it has people, it has movement. The vision has came alive again. So what Schindler saw then is living today.
Now, 70 years later, a new generation can bask in the light and the space Schindler is famous for.
This place will never go back to disrepair. Never again. This will be an icon. This will be a beacon for all underserved communities. It can be done.
I'm Jennifer Sabih for SoCal Connected.